these guys, Hegseth and Trump, are not engaging in the extremely complex combat decisions related to, for instance, Ukraine. I mean, that is a difficult situation, a situation which requires some attention of these attention deficit guys. Whereas bombing an unarmed small boat in the middle of the sea, in which nothing is at stake other than the lives of some purported drug couriers. I mean, this is just shameful. No, this becomes increasingly disturbing, but increasingly a stranger and stranger story. So let's come back to that.
All right, we'll come back to it, because we also want to talk about the changing of the architect. No surprise there on the East Wing, which people actually liked your description of the East Wing looking like Gaza. Just a pile of rubble. It
really is vivid, that whole thing. That, I mean, it just hangs out there. All those wires, that concrete, everything broken, which is actually what a building looks like when it has sustained a direct hit from a missile.
All right, folks. We need to talk about something that's been developing with Pete Hegseth and these Caribbean boat strikes, because what we're witnessing isn't just incompetence or poor judgment. It's a fundamental inversion of how military command is supposed to work, and the implications are genuinely terrifying. Let me break this down for you, because the conversation around this reveals something much deeper and more disturbing than just one controversial strike. Here's the traditional understanding of how civilian-military relations are supposed to function. We've always recognized that the military would be run by people of a certain warrior disposition and mindset who need to be restrained. These are people trained and prepared to go to war if necessary, people with an instinct to pull the trigger when confronted with threats. And there are very good reasons why you want people capable of that. If war becomes necessary, you need warriors who can execute military operations effectively. By the way, I am trying to do my best to gather all the information I can for you and share it with you. Please leave your likes and comments, and I would be grateful if you subscribed. Let's continue. But the whole point of civilian control is that you have civilian authority in charge of these warrior types specifically to restrain that instinct to always go to war. The last thing you want is to always be going to war. You need the capability, but you need judgment about when to actually use it. So civilian authority exists to see the grander picture, to understand diplomatic and political consequences, to exercise restraint even when military options are available. What has seldom been contemplated, what almost nobody imagined could happen, is that this balance would be completely turned around, that you would have a military that's rules-bound, filled with experts who are highly skilled at what they do, deeply knowledgeable about the nuances of combustible situations, and then have them run by people who are completely off the beam, who have no comprehension of what's at stake, who are just macho guys wanting to do macho war stuff, playing it all for the cameras and posing around. Think about the absurdity of Hegseth and Trump going, "We've got Admiral Bradley's back," as if somehow Bradley is the one who made the error, but they're magnanimously supporting him anyway. When we know from reporting that this was Hegseth's command, don't leave anybody floating in the water, kill them all. That directive came from civilian leadership, not from military commanders who understand the laws of war. And it's distressing how predictably the reaction fell along party lines. Democrats who saw the classified video said it was one of the worst things they'd ever seen. Tragic figures floating around, clutching bits of wreckage in the sea, unclear how they were going to survive this situation. Meanwhile, Tom Cotton, the only Republican willing to go on camera about it, just said these are drug dealers, terrible people, get rid of them. Never mind that they may have been pathetic drug mules trying to supplement meager fishing income. The truth is, we don't even know, because we didn't bother to find out before killing them. Cotton is just saying what he has to say to keep his job, which is a fixed situation in today's Republican Party. but the broader context here bears serious attention. These guys, Hegseth and Trump, are not engaging in extremely complex combat decisions related to situations like Ukraine. That's a genuinely difficult situation requiring sustained attention from people who demonstrably have attention deficit issues. Instead, they're bombing an unarmed small boat in the middle of the ocean where nothing is at stake other than the lives of some purported drug couriers. It's shameful. Someone pointed out that Admiral Bradley's career may actually be at stake here. These situations always have knock-on impacts, but from a strategic perspective, there's nothing at stake. From a political perspective, sure, there's something at stake for these guys. And the next step in understanding this is recognizing that what Hegseth and Trump are doing is systematically undermining the military's trust in civilian leadership, and for very good reasons. These guys very clearly have no idea what they're doing. Let's be blunt about this. Regardless of what Tom Cotton is saying publicly to maintain his position, everybody in the military knows that what Hegseth and Trump are doing is creating situations where officers are going to be hauled before Congress or potentially dragged to The Hague for war crimes tribunals. This is not good for anybody's careers in the military. The curse of officers who have worked their entire careers, risen through the ranks to assume command positions, working hard for jobs that most people never achieve, to find yourself having gotten one of these prestigious positions in Donald Trump's military is tragically ironic. Someone who was very senior in the military and worked with Admiral Bradley expressed hope that Bradley wouldn't have bombed the boat twice on his own initiative because he would know that was wrong. It looks like Pete Hegseth gave that order. And you must be in an incredibly difficult position when the second most powerful person in the U.S. government is telling you to do something you believe is illegal. Let's talk about what we know of Pete Hegseth. He's an alcoholic. He's a lightweight. He has no relevant experience for this job, no management experience whatsoever in any field of endeavor, and on top of that, he's famously just a dope, an absolute moron. Within the military, that's how he's regarded, as someone completely unqualified for the position he holds. Hegseth did a podcast this week with his wife following the trend Mike Johnson started. When asked what most surprised him about becoming Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of War as he now calls himself, he said it was the budget. He was surprised to discover there was a budget and that there were limitations on spending. Really? That's what surprised you? You're taking over the biggest military department in the world with a budget of hundreds of billions of dollars, and you're surprised there's a budget? This is a man who failed to manage budgets at 2 veteran organizations he previously worked for. It would be genuinely interesting, when all of this passes, to get a candid picture of what military leadership actually thinks about the experience of dealing with Hegseth and Trump. There are stories about how when generals would come in to brief Trump with PowerPoint presentations, he couldn't last 90 seconds, couldn't handle the details, couldn't focus on substantive information. Although apparently when you explained life and death situations to Trump in the right way, he would sometimes take it seriously, listening with his head cocked to one side. But there have been shameful episodes in American military history. Abu Ghraib, various incidents in Iraq. This feels like another one to add to that list. What's unique about this situation is how one-sided it is. These are decisions coming from civilian authority that are patently wrong, that everyone can see are wrong. This isn't the fog of war, as Hegseth kept trying to claim. We're not at war. This is a demonstration killing. We're going to kill these people to show that we can kill these people situation. The fog of war is the kind of line Gene Hackman would say in a movie, and you'd think, how awful. What a terrible situation. But when Pete Hegseth says it, it just sounds like a pathetic excuse for an ill-thought-out policy that has absolutely no logic or justification. It's also a weird excuse because there is no war. This wasn't a situation with conflicting imperatives or split-second decisions in the face of enemy fire. This was a drone bombing an unarmed small craft with plenty of time to assess the situation. And now RFK Jr. is dismantling the foundation of modern healthcare by withdrawing hepatitis B vaccines from babies. It's extraordinary. He's removing protections that have kept our children safe, that represent the advances of modern medicine. Why? Mostly because of RFK himself and his personal obsessions, though there's also a strange anti-science movement in this country that's intersected with politics. But the fundamental issue is that we suddenly have someone with enormous power who is committed to extremes, a crazy person named Kennedy who thinks he can be president and sees solidifying the MAGA anti-vax base as his path to the White House. It's become a pronounced strain in American political life, partly because of his efforts. For whatever reasons, this fringe position has gained traction that it shouldn't have. RFK Jr. is 72 years old. Up until basically 2 years ago, he had achieved nothing in life, certainly nothing measured against the expectations of his family name. The only thing that ever got him real public attention besides his drug addiction was this anti-vax crusade. The confluence of that with Donald Trump in summer 2024 transformed him into one of the most powerful people in American life today. It makes no sense. There's no logic here except caprice and happenstance. Think about how we got here. His campaign for president was financed by Nicole Shanahan, whose nearly $1 billion came from her divorce settlement from Sergey Brin after an alleged affair with Elon Musk. These characters are all swirling in their own chaos. Shanahan met Brin when she was on a bachelorette weekend about to get married. Her first marriage lasted 27 days. She walks away with a Toyota Prius. Then she has an affair with Brin, marries him, divorces him after the Musk situation, and uses that settlement to finance RFK Jr., who promised to make her his vice president. With that money, she helped finance a man who's now ending vaccine programs that have saved countless lives. The motto of Google, Brin's company, was, "Don't be evil." The irony is almost too much. And all of this defies natural logic and cause and effect. But the result is that something profoundly unreasonable is being done, curtailing vaccines that have demonstrably transformed modern life for the better. Senator Bill Cassidy, shame on you for being seduced by Kennedy's charm and thinking your Senate career was more important than the lives of American children. Though to be fair, these senators face an impossible choice. You can have this career, you can stay in the Senate, or you'll get primaried by Trump-backed challengers. They literally had no choice if they wanted to remain in office. Why would the Trump administration go to the mat for these ridiculous figures like Hegseth and RFK Jr.? Because as soon as they put up these people, they had to defend them. Otherwise, it would be clear they were ridiculous choices. So now we're reaping the results of having unqualified, dangerous people in positions of immense power. What's going on in Trump's head when he hears RFK Jr. is pulling hepatitis B vaccines from babies? Trump has had his own kids vaccinated. He's crazy, but not that crazy. No, but he has a profound lack of interest in things that don't directly concern him. Vaccines don't come into his personal sphere of concern. Plus, he's got this Kennedy, which is what really matters to him. He owns the name Kennedy now, which gives him satisfaction while other Kennedys criticize him. From Trump's perspective, I have this guy named Kennedy. I own the Kennedy name. All the other Kennedys say I'm horrible, so fuck them because my Kennedy is now more powerful than all the other Kennedys combined. This is exactly how Trump thinks. The fact that there are vaccines being removed has an added benefit because MAGA people are crazy on the subject and he needs to keep them happy. It's built into understanding RFK Jr. that he's crazy. A crazy man does crazy things. He's a drug addict, a compulsive philanderer, someone with documented sexual compulsions and bizarre Catholic guilt about his behavior. His relationship with Olivia Nuzzi revealed this pattern of sexual frenzy, followed by blaming the woman, calling her wicked for supposedly seducing him when he was weak. These are his mud demons, as he apparently called his sexual proclivities. This is a life no one would want. But he has this clear sense of unmet expectations, that he's being forced to be something he failed at or was denied his entire life. Up until 2 years ago, he had achieved basically nothing against those expectations. The anti-vax thing was the only issue that got him real attention, and its confluence with Trump transformed him into someone powerful, despite having no qualifications whatsoever. And then there's the White House itself, the physical building. The East Wing has been demolished and looks like Gaza, a pile of rubble, wires hanging everywhere, concrete and broken materials scattered about. It's exactly what a building looks like after sustaining a direct hit from a missile. except the enemy is within. It's the perfect physical manifestation of the Trump administration's chaos and destructiveness. James McCrory, the architect who designed the East Wing and was supposed to be involved in rebuilding, has apparently stepped back from the project. Why would anyone want that on their resume? Trump destroyed the White House. The new architect is Shalom Baranis Associates, who do a lot of government work. People should reach out to them and ask what they want the White House to look like, because it's not Trump's private property. It's the people's house. The project keeps changing. It went from a ballroom seating 700 to one seating 1,300. Trump apparently wants it big enough to hold political conventions and inaugurations because he knows he'll never get another crowd like his first inauguration. This is Trump's moment of grandiosity. If you live in New York, you know the curse of Trump buildings. This is just another one, except it's being inflicted on the most historically significant residents in America. To assume you can destroy American history and replace it with your personal vision is not just arrogance, it's profoundly anti-American. When Trump came to the White House in 2017, he spent the first year saying what a dump it was. Now he's acting on that contempt by literally demolishing it. The rubble of the East Wing, where Melania had her office, is such an angry, symbolic gesture. Even as metaphor, it's disturbing. All of the assumptions we once counted on are now up for grabs. How do you deal with someone who will stop at nothing? You hope it will pass. We know Trump himself will eventually exit. But what does he leave in his wake? What kind of broken system and chaos remains after he's gone? These are cheerful thoughts for a Friday. The developments yesterday where Armed Services Committee members sat around and watched the video of the boat strike, of those two survivors being targeted. Democrats came out expressing shock and horror at what they saw. Republicans mostly stayed silent, except for Tom Cotton spinning absurd justifications that even Admiral Bradley didn't use in his briefing. This is where we are. Facts don't matter. Law doesn't matter. What you can see with your own eyes doesn't matter. All that matters is defending Trump and his people, regardless of what they've done. This is how accountability dies, how war crimes get normalized, how guardrails get dismantled. And we're watching it happen in real time across multiple fronts: military operations, public health, historic preservation, democratic norms. The chaos is the point. The destruction is the point. And the question is, what we'll have left when this administration finally passes, and whether we'll be able to repair the damage they're deliberately inflicting on institutions that took generations to build.